figuring out what's important to your students in the college application process, and also looking at the different steps that and processes that go into that. So the first thing we're going to talk about is factors to consider in evaluating colleges. One thing you might want to think about is the type of college. Are you considering public schools, private schools, religious schools, 2-year, 4-year? Are they going to go right into a trade, or do they want to apply to 4-year universities? Liberal arts college, specialized colleges, like some students may want to go into music production, let's say, and you might be looking at a school that specializes just in that. So that's one way to start narrowing down the colleges that you're going to look at is what type of college are you thinking about? Admission selectivity may or may not matter to you in the college application process. So you may want to know how many students are actually admitted to the school. And so what are their chances of admission at the school? And that might help you decide what other schools you want to put on the list. So a college list should really be a range of schools that are far reaches, schools that the students' numbers may be below what is generally accepted at that school. There should also be schools that are target schools where the students' numbers are sort of in line with what is usually accepted at that school. And then schools that are more likely. I don't like to use the word safety, although some people do call these schools safety schools. I don't feel that anything is really safe in the college admission process anymore. And a lot of times when you refer to a school as a safety, students go in feeling that they're definitely going to get in and they don't really have to try very hard on their application. And students can see that, you know, that the student considers the school a throwaway school. So they're surprised when they're not actually admitted to the safety school. So I like to say likely. There should be some schools on the list where it's likely that the student can get in. Curriculum might be important. Obviously the majors that are offered, if your child knows for sure they want to study a certain topic, the college should have it. And if the college doesn't have that, then there's no reason to apply. How good is their advisement on selection of teacher? Are the ACE and AP classes that they're taking going to count for college credit? That's something that should be part of your research if that's important to you, because they're not accepted everywhere. For AP classes, it depends on the score at some schools if they're going to accept them for college credit or not. So if finances are important to you and you want those classes to count, that's something that you should be looking into, especially out-of-state and private schools. What are their strong departments? Where do they place their students after college? Where do they end up getting jobs after they graduate from that school? What are the requirements for admission and what are the requirements to graduate from that school? Something else you might want to look at. Intellectual atmosphere, flexibility and structure for study. There are some colleges now that don't even give grades. They just give narratives, which is, for some students, grades are very stress-inducing. And so you might want to consider a school that doesn't operate that way, and there are schools out there like that. What are the interests in political and social and world issues on campus? That might be something that's important to your child. How many students graduate in 4 years or more than 4 years? Those numbers are readily publicly available. And if you see that, you know, a very small percentage of students are graduating in 4 years, you might want to ask why. Why is that? And how many years is it taking them to graduate? Faculty might be something really important, especially if your student needs very individualized attention. You might want to look into what the student to faculty ratio is, which is also available online on most of the college websites. Are they actually going to get to know their professor, talk to their professor, or are they going to be in a huge lecture hall with 1,000 other students and the professor does not even know anybody's name? That might be something really important for some students. Academic assistance and support services, the type of academic advising, remedial support, tutoring, learning disability programs, and learning resource centers are things you may want to look into if your student needs those kind of supports, and that definitely does vary from campus to campus. Some schools are very well known for their programs for students with disabilities, like University of Arizona. They have really strong programs So those are the kind of schools that you might want to be looking at if that's something important to your family. Career preparation, how much do they prepare students for when they graduate? Are they going to have a job, or are they going to be back on the couch? It's something you definitely want to know. Geographic location, especially in Florida, I think is important because it's hard to get out of the state. And so, you know, sometimes students might have an idea that they're going to go out of state, but they're not really thinking about how hard it is to get home and how far away it is. You know, I worked at a school in New York for a long time, and my students could apply to schools all around the surrounding states of New York and drive home on holidays. But in Florida, it's not like that. You definitely have to think about that and how much that's going to cost you too to travel back and forth. Do they want rural, suburban, large city? Every campus has sort of a different flavor. So visiting campuses to see how they feel is definitely important and can help you narrow down the list. Your child might go to a very urban campus that's just buildings in the middle of the city with no quad, no grass, and they'll say, this isn't the college experience I want. I think this might be but you can still hear me, right?
Yes.
Yeah. The size of the climate. That's another thing that's particularly Floridians need to look at. Some students have a fantasy of snow, but they don't really know what that means when it hangs around for months and months, and it's hard to navigate sometimes. Size can be really important, especially for students who are high anxiety. Going to a school with 60,000 students might not be the best option for them. So looking at smaller schools might be a good idea. You'll get this PowerPoint, and there's a link here to look at the undergrad enrollment of the Florida universities. A lot of them are, most of them are very large, but some of them are smaller. And a couple of them, like New College and Florida Poly, are very small. So that might be something that you want to consider. Is your child going to be overwhelmed with that number of students on campus? And also, if it is a very large campus, something you might want to check out when you go there or when you call or email is how do they make it seem smaller? So large universities know that they're large universities, and they make little sort of enclaves so that students feel like they're in a smaller community. And you might want to ask how they do that. Availability of sports might be important to your family. What division are they, and how easy is it to get involved with sports? Campus and student life, again, size, diversity and acceptance of differences might be important to your family. Geographic location, cultural, ethnic, racial, religious, academic, socioeconomic background of students might be something you want to check out. Facilities are definitely important. If you go to the campus and you see that the campus is crumbling, that's not a good sign. But if you see a campus where they're building, that's a really good sign. That means that that school is in good financial standing and they're doing new things on campus. Dining facilities and eating plan options might be important to your family as well. If you're vegan, if you have certain religious restrictions on your diet, you want to know if your child is going to be able to get that on campus, or at least nearby, if not on campus. The appearance is important. Health services, counseling services are things you may want to look at. Campus activities, students like to get involved in things, and colleges definitely like for them to get involved. You might want to know how many things are available for the students to get involved in, and how many students actually participate in activities. If you find that students aren't really participating in on-campus activities and they're going off-campus on the weekends and things like that, that might be good, it might not be good. It depends really on the needs of your child, but that's something that you might want to know. Cost is obviously a concern for most people. So merit-based scholarships are scholarships that students get based on usually GPA and test scores. And some colleges don't offer merit-based scholarships, so that might be something you might want to know before you make a decision. How much of the aid is based on need? So your financial need, how much aid does the college offer in regards to that? Some colleges say we cover 100% of need. That means that one way or another, maybe loans, they're going to offer some financial aid to cover 100% of need. Costs per year are important, and that's not just tuition, that's also room and board, books, cell phone, travel, food, clothes, all those things. How aid is packaged, so how much of the financial aid package that they offer you, which you'll get when a student is accepted to the school, you'll get your financial aid package, and they'll tell you what percentage is grants, scholarships, loans, and work study. Work study is when they give the student a job on campus, and that's part of their financial aid package. They pay them, and that's spending money for the student. I always recommend that students take work study if it's offered, because it's a great way to just get involved on campus and have a place right away. So work study is really good to get them acclimated to college and to make their own money. Are you willing to take out loans? Is something you may want to ask yourself. But Bright Futures in Florida Medicaid, you definitely want to know if colleges take that, if they're not the Florida public universities. Do they take that? Do they take a portion of it? And again, the ACE and AP equivalencies, there are links here that you'll see in the PowerPoint that will tell you the ACE and AP equivalencies at the universities, that will tell you what credits those ACE and AP exams will count for at each school. So you're going to see different application options when your child starts applying. The first one is rolling admissions, and most of the Florida universities are rolling. So these will be kind of tricky because it's going to say something like the application deadline is April 30th or something like that. That's not when you want to be applying to rolling schools. If you see rolling, that means the earlier the better, because they accept on a rolling basis. As applications come in, they accept, and then it gets more competitive because they have fewer seats. So the longer you wait, the harder it's going to be to get in. So I always tell my students, give yourself in your head a deadline of October 15th for rolling schools. If you can get in earlier, that's great, but no later than October 15th for rolling schools. Early action, usually there's a hard deadline for early action. It's usually like November 1st or November 15th. And that is, you'll get your decision earlier if you apply early action. A lot of times you have to apply by the early action deadline for scholarship consideration. So if the school has an early action deadline, you should always take advantage of that deadline. Early decision is a binding application. So you're a binding acceptance. So if you see this, that means that your child is making a commitment that they will definitely attend the school if they are accepted. And you're signing a contract to that effect. So you have to sign that contract, the student has to sign it, and the council also has to sign it. This is not a decision to take lightly. You should not break that contract. So some things may come into that decision. If your student is admitted to an early decision school, they have to go. So if they're admitted to other schools that they applied to at the same time, and they're like, ooh, I really like that one better, they can't go. They sign a contract to go to early decision school. Finances may also play a part in the decision to apply early decision, because if you can't afford to send your child to that school and you just signed a contract, you're going to have to break that contract. So early decision 2 is the second round of early decision. There's usually a later deadline, and that's for students who didn't get in on their first choice early decision. Oh, another thing I want to say about early decision. Early decision greatly increases the chances of being admitted, because you're telling the school they're going to get the student and they're going to get the money, basically. So it can exponentially increase the chances of admission, but again, it's a binding contract. So those are the things you kind of have to weigh. Early decision 2, also a binding contract, but at a later date for students who maybe didn't get into their first choice early decision. They can do another binding contract, which again will increase their chances of admission, but there are other things that you definitely need to consider with that decision. Early notification of priority plans, sometimes they'll say January 1st deadline, November 15th deadline for priority. Priority is usually for scholarship consideration. So if you apply after that deadline, you're not going to be considered for any merit-based scholarships at the school. January admission is an option that may be offered by some colleges. They may say to your student, we like you and we want to admit you, but not for fall semester. We want you to come in spring semester and do something else for the fall. If your child loves that school and absolutely wants to go to that school, then you should take that option. Summer admission, some schools may offer summer admission. Some schools may offer the ability to apply directly for summer admission. And you can see if you look at the different schools, the stats are a little bit lower for summer admission. So the GPA and test scores might be a little bit lower. And what summer admission means is that they come to campus early. They have to maintain a certain GPA to keep up in the fall. I love summer admission because it allows students to go to the campus early and get acclimated before the flood of however many thousand students comes in the fall. So they get to form a friend group, they have advisors, and they get prepared really for the fall. So some students see summer admission as a disappointment. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for students to get to know the campus. Guaranteed transfer, so you may have heard of things like Valencia College. You can go to the college for 2 years and then you're guaranteed admission at UCF or one of the other universities if you maintain a certain GPA at that 2-year community college. So that's a guaranteed transfer, and again, when you get this PowerPoint, there's a link there for the application options at the Florida universities. All right, searching for colleges. Of course, the internet is our best friend for college admissions. We don't really pay attention to the mailers or even get the mailers like it used to be, just everything by mail and you have college mail paper. The internet is really the primary resource for searching for colleges. One of my favorite internet resources is Big Future by College Board. So your students should have a College Board account if they've taken a PSAT or an SAT. They should have a College Board account already. So you can use this. For some reason it's not letting me click on the link, but that'll bring you to it. And they can log in with their credentials that they already have. You can create a college list by searching for your particular wants. So you can search by size, by majors, by the other things that are offered, and then create the college list, compare them side by side. There's career exploration on here, financial aid and scholarships, and test prep. You know what? It's okay, because I'm going to just sign in. It's all right. Thank you. The State University System of Florida has a really great page with all of the universities there. So you can see each one. There's an interactive tool that's new that allows you to explore data at the system level and by individual institution, including information on salaries of graduate employment, student debt, and additional education opportunities. So there's a lot of information there on each of the universities. So check that out. Virtual college fairs. College fairs in general are like a speed dating for college, I like to say. So at in-person college fairs, you'll see all the schools will set up tables. You get to go to each table and collect information and ask questions. Usually the person who's at that table is the regional leader for our region. So they're coming from the college as the person who actually reads the applications for our school. So they're really good resources to ask your questions directly. Virtual college fairs are really great too, because you can sort of hop around online to the different tables, but you do get to speak to live representatives, and they give little sessions that you can go to. So NACAC, the National Association for College Admission Counseling, has great virtual college fairs. They have some that are by subject, so they'll have like just art schools, just schools for students with learning disabilities, just schools for certain particular things. So check that out. SACAC is the Southern Association for College Admission Counseling. They also have virtual college fairs that are more schools to be more local. And then Big Future, again, on College Board has great college fairs as well, virtual college fairs. So you might want to check out those either in person or virtual college fairs. Virtual campus tours are really cool. It is letting me click on it. So this is one site that I really love, which is UVisit. And you basically, you search for a school, you can click on the school. Oh, it's not showing you though. So I'm looking at it. It lets you look at this, click on the schools, and there's a virtual tour guide who walks you around. And you get to actually see the buildings. They do 3D tours, and it's really cool. So check out the virtual college tours. Those are really good for, especially if you can't visit a campus, or if you're trying to decide where you actually want to visit. You can look at a virtual tour first, and then you may say, wow, I can see already that this isn't somewhere I want to look at. Or you might say, okay, this is somewhere I really want to see in person, and then that can go on your list for an actual in-person visit. Florida Shine's virtual campus tours, those are just for Florida universities, so check that out as well. Again, for visiting, it's really good to be able to narrow down where you want to visit, or if you can't visit at all, just do the virtual tours. Of course, our college, our counseling department webpage has a very in-depth section on college information. There's a link here for you. They did change our website recently, so this is a new link that will put you right there. We have a college admission handbook there just for Park-Vista families, and pretty much all the information that you need is in that section of our website. I do college planning groups for juniors and seniors. They have been at 3:30 on Tuesdays. Do the spring for juniors and fall for seniors. We may change that, but as of right now, they are at 3:30 virtually on Tuesdays. And I just go over step by step in each section process and hopefully try to take some anxiety out of the process for the students. All right, campus visits and other contacts. Campus visits are a really fun way to look at, to consider schools. It can be like a little adventure. It really makes the college search process come alive. So you're not just reading about what the school has to offer, you're actually seeing it in person. You're seeing the students at the school, how they look, do they look happy, do they look kind of miserable, do they hold the door for you? You know, things like that really give you a feel for what the campus is like. I do want you to remember campus visits are for the student. So the student should take the lead on these. They should go into the admissions office and sign in. They should go to what they're interested in seeing. They should ask questions of current students. I know that that's difficult for parents sometimes, but you might just want to stay in the car. Or you might want to have your own tour and go see the things that you're interested in and let your child look at the things that they're interested in. Because the more ownership students take in the college process, the more likely they are to remain in college and not be back on your couch in a year. Because they own this now. They made their choices, they felt like they took the lead, and now this is where they are because that's where they wanted to be. So make sure you allow your child to take the lead on campus visits. There's a summer college tour that we are advertising for during college tours. We do this every year. They visit UF, UCF, FSU, UNF, USF, Tampa, NCT, University of Tampa, FGCU, and Flagler College. So it's a really good mix of large universities and small private schools. And it's $5.99 for Park-Vista students, which is actually far less than you would be spending if you went to tour all these colleges on your own and had to get hotels and gas and everything else. So that might be something you want to look into. There was one in March and there's going to be another one in June. Planning a visit. When you're planning to go see a college, or particularly if you're going to see multiple campuses in one day, you definitely going to want to plan for that in advance. You call the admissions office. It's also usually available on their website, but you can always call the admissions so there might be like an engineering info session that you particularly want to get there for. So you want to know what's going to be going on and how you go about that. Some college tours do require a reservation, so you want to find that out before you go. Try to visit when classes are in session. We do excuse absences for students to go visit college campuses up to a certain number, which I don't know off the top of my head at the moment. But try to visit when classes are in session. If you go in the summer or during breaks, you're going to see the buildings, and that's great, but it doesn't give you a feel for how the campus feels on a day-to-day basis. And it's really, there's a different kind of energy when the students are there on campus and interacting and doing their thing. So try to do that. See if you can do an overnight trip. Sometimes they'll let you stay in the dorms, which can be an eye-opening experience. They're really gross. Definitely let the admissions office know and ask them if it's possible to sit in on a class or meet with a professor or coach. You may want to meet with somebody who can advise you on accommodations in college. So 504 plans and IEPs don't automatically transfer to college. You're going to have to make those arrangements at the college when your student matriculates there. So if that's the case, you may want to speak with somebody beforehand. You also may want to inquire about the possibility of an interview. Some schools offer interviews and some schools require interviews. That's also going to be part of your research. At the Florida universities, neither. They don't offer or require. But some schools may offer an informational interview that will give your students a chance to ask questions one-on-one of the interviewer. And some colleges might have evaluative interviews, which is actually when they take notes and put that in the student's file as part of the admissions process. So that's another part of research that you're going to want to do on the colleges that your students are thinking about. Before you visit, make sure you educate yourself about the college as much as possible. Prepare questions that are not easily, that the answers are not easily available online, because admissions reps are very busy people, and it's really annoying to them when people ask questions that are like right on the front page of the website. So think about the questions that are important to you personally that maybe you're not able to find online. Of course, get directions and find out where to park. That's a good one that some people don't think about sometimes, is parking. Be sure to sign in at the admissions office. Depending on the school, not all schools do this, but certainly private schools out of state may track interest. So what that means is they are tracking the student's interest in the school based on whether or not they visit campus, if they're applying early or early decision. So they're taking into account how likely is it that we're going to get this student. And they do that by tracking interest. Some schools even go as far as checking if the students are opening their emails when they send them. So you definitely want to sign into the admissions office because it's going to let them know you're really interested in this school. You went out of your way to go visit there. Definitely take a tour, ask to see any particular areas of interest. If you go there at a time when they're not offering tours, there's usually a map you can take and do a self-tour, which is really fun. And cool sometimes, because when you do an official tour, they're only going to show you the good, fancy, glamorous stuff that they want you to see, right? But if you do a self-guided tour, you get to see the nitty-gritty corners that you might not get to see with an official tour. So that's fine too. Ask the tour guide and other current students about specific experiences with the college. How's the social life? Are they able to get the courses they need? And the students should be doing that as well. Things to look for while you're on campus. The facilities, again, the condition of the facilities is important. Or do they look like they're well kept, or do they look like they're kind of falling apart? What religious services do they offer? How's the library? Dorms are another thing that are obviously very important to the student. Are they comfortable? Are they noisy? Are they clean? Is there privacy? Is there enough housing for students once they're accepted? Is it quiet enough to study? Meals, again, we talked about, they may have certain dietary needs, and you need to make sure that those are available either on campus or very nearby. Athletics are something you might want to look at. You might want to see how important athletics are to the social life of the campus, and that could work either way. Your student might really want a rah-rah sports school. And so they tour campus and it's like, wow, nobody even cares about sports here. Or they really might not want a really raw campus, and then they go to campus and they're like, all we care about is football, and that's not great for them. So that might be something you want to look at. Student services, academic counseling, mental health counseling, career counseling, and campus safety. It might be important to you, and I think it probably will be, to know how safe is the campus, how do students get help when needed, how many officers are on campus and where they're stationed. And look at the bulletin boards and kiosks around the school, because that can give you a really good idea of what's going on around campus. The kids will post things there for different events, and you might say, I'd like to know more about that, in a good or bad way. So definitely look at what the students are posting around campus, and assess the overall atmosphere. So this is, when visiting campus, it's for the students to say to themselves, is this a good fit for me? Most students have been told their whole lives what a good college is, or what the best college is. But the best college is the one that gives the student what they need and makes them feel safe and comfortable. That is the best college. And it doesn't have a name until the student gives it a name, until the student visits and decides that that's the best fit for them. So they should be assessing whether or not they feel good on that campus when they're there. Additional tips, get directions, plan enough time between visits if you're visiting other campuses. Trust your feelings and not the opinions of others. Again, people might tell you this is the best school or the worst school, or this school is dead and this school is good, but that's really for you to decide. So does it feel right to you? Bring a notebook, because if you visit enough campuses, eventually they all start to blur together, and you're like, where did I see that cool thing? And so definitely bring a notebook and take notes. Try not to let outside circumstances influence you. So one time at my previous school, we took our kids to UMass Amherst, and it was snowing and sleeting and wet and stuff and cold, and everybody hated the school. But it really wasn't the school, it was the weather. So try to, if your child comes back and says, well, I hated it, it was rainy, it was disgusting, try to remind them that it doesn't rain every day, and, think about the other things that the school has to offer. Remember that the tours for the students should sign in and ask questions. We also have college rep visits to Park Vista campus. We announce these all the time, you see them in the bulletins. So the reps that come to our campus are usually the reps that are going to be reading our applications. So it's a really good idea if your child is interested in that school to come meet that person and maybe try to get them to put a face to that application. Not to be pushy or annoying about it, but introduce yourself, thank them for coming to the school, ask intelligent questions that can't be found easily online. And then when the person is reading their application, they might say, oh, I remember him from Park Vista. He's the one who asked about such and such thing. So students should keep in mind, they should come prepared with intelligent questions, again, that can't be easily answered on the website. Keep in mind that the person visiting campus is likely the same person who will be reading your application. They should come down and meet the rep, even if they can't stay. So they know that they're visiting schools and students have tests, and they respect that. If a student comes down and says, I really wanted to thank you for visiting, I wanted to get whatever information you brought with me, but I really have to run because I have a test. That's okay, and they should definitely do that if that's the case. It's good to email the rep after the visit and thank them for coming and say, you can say something like, I'm even more interested now in applying. For schools that track interest, that's another way to show interest. But either way, it's just polite and nice, and it makes them look good and makes the school look good. Students should not use college visits as an excuse to miss class. Obviously, they should not behave in a manner that reflects poorly on themselves at Park Vista. So students should remember that they are representatives of Park Vista. They're actually affecting the chances of admission for future students, because they may get an idea in their head of what Park Vista students are like, So don't use it as a substitute for a campus visit. It's definitely good to get information, but you gotta visit campuses. Don't interrupt the representatives with questions or comments. So I will share this again with students in my college sessions with them. So emailing admissions, it's okay, and you should email the admissions office with questions. And the answer to most questions when you ask us as counselors is, it depends. It's always going to be, it depends, because everything depends on the school. They all have their different things. So the admissions officers are the experts on that. Definitely do email them. For students should remember that the email messages, again, need to be added to their file and reviewed when they are being considered for admission. So they should use appropriate email addresses, like not.partygirl@hotmail.com or ididtostudy@yahoo.com. They should have a professional or just use their student email. They should give their full contact information, obviously check spelling and proper punctuation. I know the students don't like to use capital letters these days, but so they should be careful about that. Be polite and respectful, and check the website to see if the answers to your questions are there. Don't use all uppercase letters like important, information, urgent, because it's annoying, first of all, but also because it could just go to the junk mail and, it gets marked as spam. Also, attachments, they shouldn't be sending attachments. Don't send anything confidential, and don't email them every day asking more things just because you want them to know who you are, because that's not cool at all. All right, so what goes into the college application package? Obviously, the first thing is the application itself. So the Common App is the most common app. That is the application that most of your students will be using. Almost all of the Florida universities are on the Common App. The Common App has been around for a really long time. Basically, the students apply through the one application. There's a portion of the application that is called the Common App, and the information that they put there, including the essay that is going to be required, goes to all schools. And then the schools are going to have their own member pages within the Common App that the students are going to have to complete parts of that as well. So, but they'll apply to all the schools through this one application portal. The Coalition app is not at all as popular. We prefer that you don't use the Coalition app, but I didn't want to exclude it from this presentation because it is another option. Most of the schools that are on the Coalition app have other ways to apply, and we would prefer that you use the other ways. It's really hard to sort of communicate with the Coalition app. UF is the only Florida university that's on the Coalition app. The Common Black College app allows students to apply to 67 historically black colleges and universities with one application and one fee. So it's sort of like the Common App, but it's only for HBCUs. And then schools might also have institutional apps. So you'll go to their website and they'll say apply here, and the student will just do an application for that one school. That might be a good option if, let's just say, your student only is applying to FAU, they're not planning on applying anywhere else, and they're just going to use the institutional app. That's okay, but using institutional apps for all of your schools, if you have like more than 5 schools, could be a lot, so just use the Common App. If the school offers more than one way to apply, only use the Common App for all of them. If you apply using the Common App and the institutional app, it's going to delay your admission decision. So please only use one. FIU and FAMU are not on the Common App. They only use an institutional app, but that hopefully will change eventually. Another part of the application package is the transcript. For the Florida universities, they ask for the self-report transcript, so students will do something called the SAR, which is the self-reported student academic record. They have to put in all of their credits, all their grades, and all the classes that they've taken in high school, and you don't actually send the transcript until they're admitted and they decide to enroll. Transcripts are important because they show the specific courses taken, the final grades for junior year, the strength of the program, which is the most important part of the application. It lists senior year courses in progress, and it shows them a pattern of grades. So your child's GPA is one part of that, but they're also going to look for an upward trend. So maybe if they didn't do so great in 9th grade, but they did better in 10th grade and they did their best ever in junior year, that matters. They're going to look for that pattern. And also a progression of rigor. So did they take basic class in the ninth grade, and then in 10th grade, they took a couple ACE classes, in 11th grade, they took 3 or 4 ACE classes. That is another upward trend that they're going to be looking for. Senior year grades, they do ask for senior year grades, so we recommend no senioritis. We do have to send them mid-year grades. So they do evaluate them, they don't change the GPA, but they will look at the grades to make sure that the student is keeping up the level of academic rigor and achievement that they are being evaluated on in the application process. Test scores have to be ordered directly from the company, the college board, ACT, or they're self-reported, and then you send your official scores when you matriculate at the school. They're generally considered in relation to the overall performance. So there is an issue with grade inflation around the country, where high schools think that if they give every student all A's, it's going to improve their chance of admission to college. But the test scores are used to validate that. So they're going to say it's very odd that this student has straight A's and everything and very low test scores. Or they might say, wow, this student has a lot of C's and D's, but the highest test score you can possibly get. So what is that going to tell them about the student? They're kind of lazy, right? They're getting perfect test scores and low grades. So that's how they use those scores. It's really in relation to the rest of the package. It's not looking at the scores on their own. Council recommendations, some schools may require recommendations, some schools may say they're optional, and some schools may not accept them or read them at all. Most of the foreign universities do not accept or read recommendations. If anything on the college application comes up that says optional, that is a trick. It's not optional, okay? Nothing's optional. If it says optional, the student has to do it, because if they don't take that option, there's going to be another student who does, and that student is going to have a stronger application. So if they say optional, the student should ask for recommendation. The council recommendation talks about the student as a whole, talks about their activities, their personality, their struggles maybe. So it's a really comprehensive report. The teacher recommendation should describe the student's strengths as a student in the classroom, how they participate in class, what challenges they may have faced and overcome in that particular class. Recommendations should be requested in person, not by email, and they should be done at the end of junior year and no later than September of senior year. So for current juniors, colleges want to see recommendations from junior year teachers. They're not going to, students not going to have time to get recommendations from senior year teachers, and 10th grade is kind of history now. So they're going to want to see junior year teachers. Students should be asking in person and soon. Essays and supplements. So there is going to be a main essay on the Common App. They give 7 options for prompts that the student can choose. The student can either choose a prompt and write to that prompt, or if they have a story that they want to particularly tell, they can write their story and then decide which prompt they want to go with. But they're always going to have to do the Common App essay. There may be supplemental essays. For example, UCF asks one that's one of the most important questions you'll see in that section of the application, which is, why do you want to attend here? So that question is very important to the schools, because they want to see that you've done your research, and you're not saying, well, my uncle went there and he said it's the best school, and also I like the weather. That's not going to fly. It needs to say, your engineering department impressed me so much when I saw this course that is offered, and I haven't seen this course offered anywhere. It has to be so specific to the school, so those supplements really matter. And those are the questions that the school is choosing to ask their students, so you know they really matter. Activities, there is an activity section on the Common App, but we also always strongly recommend that students have a resume. The activity section on the application only allows a certain amount of room for students to talk about what they did. So the resume is a much more professional way to put it together, and it also allows them more space to expound on what they've done in their high school career. Also, some schools may say uploading a resume is optional, and we already know nothing is optional. If they give them the the opportunity, they should be uploading their resume. We talked about interviews a little bit. They won't be offered or required at the public universities in Florida, but it's at out-of-state and private schools in Florida, they may offer them or require them. They may also be required for certain programs. So, you know, like an art program or some specialized program within the school may require that. Some colleges will allow supplementary materials, while others will say, please don't send us anything else. For some programs, they may request performances, recorded performances, music, dance, or athletic. An art portfolio may be required for art programs. They may offer you the opportunity to submit an original piece of writing, additional letters of recommendation, and reading is something that some colleges may allow students to have a little video of themselves, introducing themselves and saying how cool they are. So remember, nothing is optional. Any options they give should be taken. We talked a little bit about the essay. Almost all colleges will require one essay. Megan, how many do you have time?
You've got 12 minutes.
Okay. So I think I'm not going to show this video, but when you get the PowerPoint presentation, please watch this video. It has admissions reps from very selective schools talking about what they're looking for in an essay. Students should be writing their own essays. Sometimes parents think they're doing their child a favor by writing their essays. And you're really, really hurting them in the application process by doing that. Because what admissions officers really want to see is the voice of the student. And they can tell the difference between the voice of a teenager and the voice of like a 40-year-old woman. Because they're experts and they do this all day, every day. So also over-editing the essay is a really bad idea. If the student writes an essay and then you want to make it perfect, and I understand that, but it's not good to over-edit it because, again, it takes away their voice. Be honest. Students should talk about their strengths as well as their challenges. If they're only writing glowing things about themselves, it may seem a little odd. They obviously have had some challenges, and it's good to talk about those and how to overcome them. Use the essay to reinforce information found elsewhere in the application. So if the student is saying, I'll just use engineering again. Engineering is my life. Then they may want to use that essay to talk more about why that is and how that came about or how that has affected their life. Emphasize what's important to you. Pay careful attention to directions. Most of the prompts on the Common App essays are multi-part. So they'll say, tell us about a time you experienced an obstacle and how did it affect you and what was the outcome. A lot of students miss the how did it affect you and what was the outcome part, and they just tell a story. So following directions is really important. Proofreading carefully is a good idea. Students, I always say, should show their essays to 1 or 2 people. Showing it to too many people can really get confusing because everybody's going to have a different opinion. But showing it to a couple of people that you trust, maybe show it to an English teacher to check the grammar and punctuation, is a good idea. Tips for writing essay, definitely answer the question asked, organize your thoughts, think small and write about something you know, don't write about everything that has ever happened in your whole life. Definitely don't rehash your list of activities. They're already hearing about activities in the activity section or the resume and the counselor recommendation, so you don't need to list all of your activities again. Using big words to impress doesn't work either. So I'm going to speed it up here a little bit because I'm talking too much and I'm behind. So testing for college admission, I'm sure you're all aware of this. College admissions tests like the SAT and ACT, they're typically taken in the spring of junior year. We do recommend that students try an SAT and an ACT. They're just different tests, and some students feel more comfortable with one. They may be better on one than the other, and they can just stick with that one test instead of taking both of them over and over again. So again, the scores are used in relation to the overall academic record. More and more colleges are moving to test optional admissions. I think the Florida State University system is the only one that's still requiring test scores and admissions. So if testing is an issue for your student and you want to look at schools that are test optional, there are over 1,800 of schools now that are test optional, and you can find them at fairtest.org. SAT versus ACT, this is a little breakdown of what's on the different tests and how they differ. One big difference between the SAT and the ACT is that the ACT has a science section. There's science in the SAT, but it's sort of sprinkled throughout the test. There's an actual science section on the ACT, so some students who are very sciencey like that. Essays, the SAT has done away with the essay. The ACT has an optional essay. Students don't really have to take the essay. Most schools don't require it or look at it anymore. AP and ACE exams can be used to show mastery in a subject. They can be self-reported on the application. So the student is going to have the SAR, or they can do it on the Common App. They should only really report scores that are 5s on AP exams, because it's not going to be very impressive to have less than a 5. A 5 shows that they've mastered the subject matter. And again, because of grade inflation, it shows colleges that they really did earn those grades in the class. They really did know the material on that test. And it's not a school that just gives everybody an A. So it can help validate the grades that you earn. AP exams will not make or break an application, but it's something that adds to the application if they get high enough scores, and it can help differentiate the students from other students in the same applicant pool who might look similar. It can also help to show your interest in a particular subject. The ACE and AP classes are very important, even if you don't have the scores to brag about. The ACE and AP classes are the most important thing because they're the most rigorous classes we offer, and that's what colleges are looking most closely at. Financial aid, there are different types of financial aid. Loans you have to pay back with interest. Grants are free money that you do not have to pay back. Work study, I mentioned earlier, they may offer the student a job on campus, which is a great opportunity, and I think you should always take it. Scholarships are gifts, they also don't have to be repaid. Schools may give scholarships for merit. There are tons of search engines for scholarships, and there's an unlimited amount of scholarships that students can apply for. Sometimes students get scholarships just because nobody else took the time to apply. So if finance is something that's important to you and you're a parent of a junior, now is really the time to start looking at those scholarships that they might qualify for. It's a big time consumer, those scholarship applications. So I always say, parents, if you're going to do anything for your students in the actual application process, scholarship applications would be one. Applying for financial aid in October of senior year, they're going to apply to the FAFSA, that's the Federal Application for Free Student Aid, and that's where money from the government comes. That's where the money from the government comes from. Even if you feel like you are not going to qualify for financial aid, you should still do the FAFSA, because you never know, and we've seen this especially with COVID, you never know when your situation might change at the drop of a hat. And then, if you don't have that done, they're not going to be able to get financial aid when they need it. So you should do the FAFSA. The FFAA is also going to be done in October of senior year. That's the Florida financial aid application. With that, they're applying for different scholarships and grants from the state of Florida, but that's also how to apply to Bright Futures. So, and another thing I want to say about that, even if you think your student is not going to qualify for Bright Futures, you should still do the FFAA, because they recalculate the GPA, and the GPA that you're seeing here might not be the GPA that they see when they calculate your child's GPA. So, apply. It doesn't hurt to apply, you don't lose anything by applying. Scholarships, we talked about. The CSS profile comes from College Board, that's the SAT, AP, and CSAT company. It's another financial aid application that may be required by some private schools. They go a little bit more in depth into your finances. So that's another part of your research. You might want to find out if the college requires the CSS profile. All right, am I right on time? Awesome. Any questions? Yes. Usually the school will tell you. Traditionally, it's 2 teacher recommendations. if they require them. But they'll usually tell you how many they'll accept or require. Yeah.
With SSAR, with them inputting their own class course information with their grades and everything, where are they pulling that information from for it to be accurate?
SIS.
Just directly from SIS, any particular, just a report card or?
Well, there should be a grade history. I don't know what it looks like on your end, so I don't know exactly where to tell you to go, but they should be able to access their grade history.
And there's no way for them to mess that up?
Oh, there's plenty of ways for them to mess it up. But what's going to happen is if they're accepted to the school and they decide to matriculate at that school, then we do send an official high school transcript.
Okay.
So anything that doesn't match is going to be a question. But you can definitely ask the student's counselor for help. You can print an unofficial transcript for them to use to put in all that stuff.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, we're sending it out today. Early decision 1 is usually November 1st, November 15th, and EP2 is usually in January. Can you accept? You can't apply EP1 and EP2 at the same time. You can only apply to EP2 if they've been denied or deferred from the EP1 school. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Exactly. So if finances are going to be the deciding factor, there should not be a final decision. Because of that question, you're not going to know the financial aid package until they're accepted. Anybody else? Yeah. It's too early. They'll apply in October of next year. That's when they'll open for application. Anybody else? Yeah. So October of this year, next school year, yeah. Yeah. Yep.
When is it recommended to begin the application process?
I recommend that they begin the application process now. Yeah, at least, narrowing down just the schools. They should definitely be opening the Common App and looking at what what each school is gonna ask for. They should definitely be brainstorming and essay. As much as they can do over the summer, it's really helpful for their stress levels, because if they're still doing this process well into senior year, it's a lot. So if they can get started now and be ready to hit submit when those applications open, it takes a lot of the anxiety out of the process. Thank you. Sure. There are some, I don't, did it say that? There are many that are looking at. Oh, yeah.
Do we have to wait until the school year's over and then they're considered a senior or?
Yeah, but if it says it's for seniors only, you would have to wait until they're actually a senior. There are some scholarships that juniors can apply for, but the bulk of them are going to be for seniors only. Yeah.
So you could apply and get accepted and then apply for that actually, or should you do it all?
Well, there's different timelines for each thing. So usually decisions won't come in before October. October is when you're really going to start applying for the financial aid. So you can definitely apply to a lot of schools before you do the financial aid application, but you probably won't have decisions before you do the financial aid application. You know? Yeah. Whatever makes sense for your family is really the best way to do it. If you can go over the summer, that's great. Oh, no, you can go, you can take them at any age, but, there may be, you want to check the availability of the tours. And also keep in mind that when students aren't there, it's not going to be the same vibe, you know. There probably will be a few students there, maybe, so. Anybody else? I don't think that our college, is that bus for, only for juniors and seniors?
No, you can go at grade level.
Yeah. Oh, well, we don't arrange that for any students, but, yeah. Anybody else? All right, well, thank you so much for coming. I hope this was helpful.